'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. I grew up on John Denver's version.
Lord, we lift up our nation to you, these United States of America. Help our nation serve the truth. Let the people see who the best man or woman to serve through your eyes. Remind every American to vote. Convict them not to forget to vote. Help us all to remind those we love that you gave us this freedom and you want us to use it wisely. Many men, women, and children have died so that we can enjoy these freedoms. We lift up those who are still fighting for us to stay free and ask you to protect them as they fight on foreign soil and at home. Protect Israel and again compel the United States to pray and support her. This is where you plan to rule and reign. Bless Diane and the board with your guiding hand as they bring speakers each month to open our eyes to the concerns of our country, state, and nation. County, state, and nation. We thank you, Lord, for showing each one of us how we can help in our own way. Bless our food to nourish our bodies, and bless those who serve it and have made it well for us. We give you the glory, the honor, and the praise. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Pastor Grace. You may stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. 1, 2, 3, count.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. I did that little count because I get yelled at. All right. Secretary's report, I think they're on the table.
They're on the table, yes.
Okay, so that's the minutes of the previous meeting. The treasurer's report, I know the treasurer's away. Do you have a report? Or? Okay, so she'll bring you up to date at the next meeting. I just have a couple of things. Well, first I want to tell you before I forget about it. There is a caregivers conference that's coming up, and caregivers face some really, really tremendous challenges. And it's it's at the Kane Center, and I'm looking madly for the date here. It's 8:30 to 2:30, and I have a date that would be very helpful. Yeah, May 22nd. So May 22nd, 8:30 to 2:30. This is the wonderful conference. If you are a caretaker or know a caretaker, it's really, they will gain so much from this, from between the resources, and they will also know that there is help for the patient and there's also help for them, because it really is just wears you to the bone day in and day out, particularly when it's a very close loved one. So if you're in that situation at all, or if you know anyone in that situation, please encourage them to go. I just have a couple of things. I want the members to think about. We'll have a meeting in June, and I thought I didn't bring the dates with me, but it's always the third Tuesday. All candidates, of course, are welcome. We'll have a meeting in June. What we did last year, and I think it worked quite well, is we did not have a meeting in July because we're all busy in July, and we're all hopefully doing the phone banks and doing what we're supposed to be doing to help the candidates. So, and then we have a big social in August. There again, we try to do it on the third Tuesday, but that doesn't always hold because it's a social and we want as many of you possible to come here. Candidates are also welcome to come to that. So I think that's exactly how we're going to work it. And unless you're informed otherwise by me, by email, the last meeting, formal meeting, will be June, and then we'll be working in July, also in August, and then we're going to have a big party for some of you who may remember last year's party. It was really a great party. Food was good, the booze was good, we had a good time. Okay, and then I'm going to be asking, after June, the election committee to meet, and because by then we will have heard from all the candidates, and we have, as you know, we formed the committee several months ago, and it's just basically going to be basic questions and how the candidate responded to it. We're not going to recommend what candidate you vote for or you don't vote for. It's just going to be basic information, questions and answers of things that we know about them. Okay? And in the interest of speed today, we ended up with 3 speakers. We are the last. But first I want to introduce Beverly Hires. She's been here before. She's supposed to be here. Say 3 words? Sure.
That was one.
I'm sorry, you say 10.
10. Okay, I'll try to get
Whatever.
Beverly Hires. Y'all know me or have met me in the community or at the last couple meetings. I am running for United States Congress. I live here in Martin County. I am an attorney. I have an MBA in healthcare management, and I'm a registered nurse. I'm running for Congress because I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take how Obamacare is killing jobs, 2.5 million jobs, canceling healthcare plans, 78 million healthcare plans, hurting our health, hurting patients, and is cutting Medicare. I am the only healthcare professional in this race. If anybody says otherwise, they're wrong. This race will be about healthcare and about Obamacare. It is the number 1 issue. I'm the only candidate who's a professional healthcare provider. I will hold Patrick Murphy accountable for his shortcomings on Obamacare. He's voted again and again for Obamacare, and I will hold him accountable and set the dialogue in this race. So I welcome you to join my campaign. I'm engaging on the grassroots level, on page voters one-on-one, and thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Brian Lara, would you also report briefly, please?
Hi, Brian Lara, also running for Congress, District 18. I've been here before, but as you know, I'm a computer programmer, and I'm the only candidate who's not run before. You have a choice to make here, guys. You can choose, if you like the way the country's going, take one of those career politicians. They're part of the group. But otherwise, pick someone who's running because we need to stop this amnesty bill. Here's the trump card for the Democrats. If this bill passes, the Democrats will have all the votes they'll ever need to do anything they want, with the gun control, more welfare, more taxes. And we'll save Obamacare. Those illegals who will be getting the vote, if you poll them, they, by large numbers, favor Obamacare. So all these politicians who are saying that we're going to fight Obamacare are going to do nothing because we will lose all our power as Republicans. We must stop the amnesty bill. I'm Brian Lara. I'm running for Congress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, we're really going to be pressed for time today, so I'm not being rude. I'm just trying to really move everyone through so you can hear from them. I think that we should start with Carl Domino, and they will have like 10 minutes or so to say whatever they want to say, and then after they finish that, they'll go back and have their lunch. And at the end, all 3 will be available for a Q&A. And if you have a question of Carl, you direct it to Carl. If you have a question of any of the candidates, quite frankly, direct it directly to them. Okay? Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. Well, most of you know me. My name is Carl Domino. I live in Jupiter. I've lived in the district since the late 80s. I built a business in the district. I started a little firm with 4 employees, about $4 million under management. 13 years later, I had about 40 employees, and I had $2.5 billion under management. As people entrusted their personal wealth, their prospects for retirement to our firm. My wife Sharon and I are the proud parents of 14-year-old twins that will start high school next year. You know, I was thinking this week, because it's Memorial Day, about the fact that I am the only person in this campaign that served in the military. And I was thinking about the fact that when I was a younger man, much younger, I returned from Vietnam. You fly back into San Francisco. And unlike many of my comrades in arms, no one spit at me. No one yelled, "baby killer." In fact, a number of people, we had to wear our Vietnam ribbons, and people knew. A number of people came up and said, thanks for going there. The war had not quite gotten as unpopular as eventually it was. And for all that time, military people have been held in esteem. But all of a sudden now we have a war on the military. I don't know why it is. We have politicians that take all the pictures with their military friends, they go to the graveyard, and then they attack military people. They attack them. And no one's attacking more this administration. They've cut the pension benefits for the military. They are going to bring us back to levels that we've not seen since before World War II. They're going to go to a one theater military. In other words, you could fight a big war somewhere, but not everywhere. Well, on December 7th, 1941, if we'd only had the capacity to fight one war, we'd have to choose between the Pacific or the Atlantic. We chose not to. So one of the things I would like to do when I get to Congress is get on the Veterans Affairs Committee and let everyone know, not just on Memorial Day or Veterans Day or those days, but we have these freedoms. We're having this debate today because many before us have died. I was, as many of you know, 8 years in the legislature. And my constituents are a relatively well-off constituency. But they did ask me to do three things, and we did those three things. One is they asked me to cut taxes. We started in my second year in the legislature, and it took 5 years to do it, a fight for something called portability. If you own a home and you have a tax benefit and you sell it and you move, in the old days, you had to pay the higher taxes. But we developed a scheme by which you would take and port that to your new home. To do that in this state, it has to be a constitutional amendment. To get a constitutional amendment passed, you have to have 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, and 60% of the citizens. Not an easy thing to do, but we did it. And in early 2008, 67% of the people in South Florida passed portability. And now many thousands of people are moving and having the advantage of tax savings. Secondly, they said we need to create, in those days it wasn't create jobs, it was high-paying jobs. Because we've always had agriculture and real estate development and tourism, but many of those jobs do not pay a lot. And we had a vision about high-paying jobs, and then we got lucky. I worked with Governor Bush. He called and asked me if I could go out to La Jolla, California with some of my associates, and we looked at the Scripps Research Institute. And now, almost a decade later, there's almost 1,000 jobs in the Treasure Coast. And when your children, your grandchildren study medicine or science, there's internships at Max Planck and there's internships at Scripps. And when they finally get that PhD or that advanced science, life sciences degree, there'll be jobs out there. Now I'm working with a group that's trying to bring a teaching hospital. But we did, as I said earlier, in our private life create dozens of jobs, but our public life create thousands of jobs. Finally, they said, let's not waste money. I was talking with Mary Lynn the other day, Representative Magar, and even she said, Carl, it really must have been tough when you were there, because they had $77 billion to spend. We had to cut every year. So when I took on John Texter, who's written up in the paper today, and said, Charlie Crist, Governor Crist, don't give him $20 million of our taxpayer money, because the thing he wants to do is not going to work. It's a failed business plan. Well, you don't want to be the only guy in town saying don't bring 500 jobs to the community, because that's what you kept telling the people in St. Lucie County. But the fact is, I did my homework. I spent hours looking at the numbers, and it was doomed to failure. I lost that battle. And because I lost that battle, in Port St. Lucie is a $40 million building they're paying taxes on. And the citizens of the state put out 20, the feds put out more. We've got to have people who will do their homework and have some financial background. I want to answer questions, so I want to not talk a little bit more, but I want to say this. I'm so pleased with all the candidates you'll see today. I'm the only one that was able to get 4,800 people to sign a ballot to put me on the petition. And so we were one of the few non-incumbents in the state of Florida to qualify for the petition via ballot. And I want to talk about a few of my endorsements. I was so honored to be endorsed by former Senator George Lemieux. George is one of the true voices of conservatism. And even in his short time in the U.S. Senate, he was able to create legislation that saved us money. I was equally proud to be endorsed by the highest ranking, to my knowledge, African American state holder, actually she's from Trinidad, so I guess she's Caribbean American, Lieutenant Governor Jennifer Carroll. Jennifer and I were whips in the Florida legislature. We worked together, and she endorsed me knowing that I am the best bet to beat Patrick Murphy. And finally, because he's local, I was proud to be endorsed by Sheriff Will Snyder. Will tell you during this campaign that I'm a solid fiscal conservative that will work very hard. I'm not out to grab the headlines. I'm not going to have my picture in the paper. But we will be the workhorse, and we will affect change in Washington. And that change will be to create jobs by making sure the Keystone Pipeline comes through, by making sure Obamacare is either repealed or reformed, by making sure that there's less government regulation because our small businessmen are being buried under red tape. And Obamacare, I might say, I actually think the more likely ending of Obamacare, because as long as he's president, he'll veto anything we pass, is a case that was heard by the District Court of Appeal in Washington called Sissel, which basically says it's a revenue-raising bill. That's what John Roberts said last year, and therefore has to originate in the House of Representatives. It did not do that. If the Supreme Court rules that it was passed incorrectly, then we will have no more Obamacare. So we will fight for veterans, we will fight for jobs, and we will also fight for the local issues, and I will close there. Issues such as All Aboard Florida. I have, in the newspapers, publicly opposed All Aboard Florida. I've asked the same questions I asked the management of Digital Domain. What is it going to cost for a ticket? Is this a financially viable project? Why, if it's a private project, do you need $1.5 billion or so? What public project has ever started at one level and not ended up higher? We are a part of a group of communities, Loblaw and many others are going to be meeting. We've hired 2 lobbyists, and we will be fighting All Aboard Florida. And finally, just as I got funding for the Lake Worth Lagoon and the Loxahatchee River when I was in the state representative, we will fight to try to get federal funding, which is not being done, to solve the problems of the releases of the estuaries, the Indian River Lagoon, the St. Lucie River. We had in this state something called SURF, and the state has done its job on the SURF. We've allocated what the feds have yet to do anything. And a Republican in Washington is more likely to get the funding necessary because he's going to have the ear of the majority. He's going to have the ear of the speaker. I will end much of what I say by this. I know a lot of people out there tell me, Patrick Murphy's a nice guy. When you vote in November, you're not voting for Patrick Murphy. Right. You're voting for Nancy Pelosi.
Yep, that is
Remember that to tell you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
that's the best line. Remember that, Brian. You could use it too.
I tell people all the time, if you like Pelosi, like Obama, Murphy's your guy.
Hello, everybody. I want to wake you up here in the middle of the day. I'm Alan Schlesinger. I'm running for the United States Congress, and I'm running for one reason. I need this job like I need a hole in my head. This country is in a very precarious position right now. So first I want to give you some good news. This is our race to lose. You sitting down? I guess you're not. If we do what we did in 2010 in this district, we win by 14%. That's how Republican this district is. But we can't take Patrick Murphy lightly because he has made a lot of inroads, and he could overcome that 14% deficit very quickly. But it is our race to lose. It is critical that we pick the right candidate to go up against Mr. Murphy because we could lose him. And that's why I'm here today. I want you to know that if you put your trust in me, I have a lot of victories under my belt. I served 9 terms as a state representative and as a mayor. By the way, the city I was mayor of up in Connecticut was 4-1 Democrat. Took that city from a position of near bankruptcy couldn't even make payroll. By the time I left, the city was on a strong economic footing, and they, till this day, almost 20 years later, they're using the type of financing and budgeting principles that I put into that city. Very successful. And by the way, in that 4-1 Democrat city, I got reelected with 81% of the vote, broke every record. I've taken out 2 Democrat incumbents before. One of them's name was Patrick, as a matter of fact. And I just want to tell you a little bit about that race, because I was running for the state house. In my area, the gentleman's name was O'Sullivan. I lived on O'Sullivan Road. The courthouse was the O'Sullivan Courthouse. The island was the O'Sullivan Island. And his grandfather was one of the most famous politicians in Connecticut history. No one thought I had a shot. We went up against him, and we took him out with hard work getting into the trenches. What we have to do in this race is very similar. We have a guy who's very popular. He is well known now in the district. And let me tell you something. Like I gave you the good news, here's the bad news. If he beats us this time, you're not getting him out with a monkey wrench. He is going to be so entrenched in this district because he's got 2016 to come back to, which will be a much stronger Democratic year. And from that point on, he's a strong incumbent that's going to be very difficult to unseat. This is the game. This is the year. And now why is it so important? Because our country is in deep need of a massive makeover. We are watching in our lifetimes the strongest move to socialism that this country has ever seen. And I'm not just talking about Obamacare. I'm talking about in the whole narrative that's coming out of the Obama administration, which, by the way, Patrick Murphy, although he talks a good game that he's a Republican in Democratic clothing, don't buy it. He's there when they need him. And can you imagine if the Democrats ever got control of the House, what he'd do? He'd be right there with Pelosi. She calls him his little pet. So I'm saying that do not underestimate how important every seat is in the House of Representatives. We need to move this country on an entirely different trajectory. I believe that Obama and his minions can be encapsulated by what is happening with the Benghazi situation. Think about it. You have an administration that for political purposes, kind of go back in time, go back to 2012. The man's running for re-election under the narrative that we have Al-Qaeda on the run. Remember, he said that Osama bin Laden is dead and Jim is alive. Remember that? And then comes a 9/11 attack on the United States through Benghazi. So what do? Instead of trying so hard to save our people, to do the right thing, they say we got to go with the narrative. The narrative is we don't have any more terrorism, so we're going to blame it on some video, some obscure video on the internet. And we're going to literally let our Americans fry. Now, why is this a microcosm of where we're going in this country? It's because everything that this administration does, and the same thing with the leadership of Reid and Pelosi, is all based on get in line, this is the narrative, and this is where we're moving the country. And damn anyone who has a different view, and damn anyone who wants to hear the truth. Does this remind you a little bit of other regimes in the world? Other scary regimes in the world? I mean, just take a look at what they've done with the IRS. Because some people disagree, they target them. I mean, it's mind-boggling. You got a woman, I think Engelbrecht is her name, Catherine Engelbrecht from Texas, only wanted fair elections. Do you know that she now has 15 investigations from the federal government on her and her business? I mean, this is America. This was never this way. We never lived under this type of a regime. And I'm telling you, my parents grew up in Nazi Germany. And the stories they would tell me about in the early 1930s are so reminiscent and so eerily significant with free speech, etc., this politically correctness. It's so eerily reminiscent of the stories they used to tell me growing up in Germany. And if you don't think it can happen here, think again. We are moving towards a lockstep mindset socialism type movement. And if we don't turn this around, and remember, the friend, the ally of this type of a movement is debt. And you say to yourself, what does debt have to do with socialism? If you read Sal Alinsky, if you read the movements of socialism, you overwhelm the capitalistic system as much as possible, and then you can move to socialism. And then eventually, those who are in it, communism, God forbid. I believe that this is exactly the mindset of the Democratic leadership. So what we have to do in this election is we can't just be negative. We can't say that they have it the wrong way. We have to have our own narrative. Example. How much time do I got left? 3 minutes. Example. On Obamacare. We can't just say repeal it. We have to replace it. I don't know if any of you watched the interview. I was on Channel 5 on Sunday. I was very specific on what we need to do. We need to put into a much more simplistic system that is HSA, health savings account based, with maybe some of you, I know you're all too young to remember this, they used to be called major medical, with a major medical component. And I mean across the board, including welfare people. Can you imagine if for the first time people who had free health care all their lives had skin in the game by giving them a health savings account? We tried this in my city. We gave them health savings accounts for free. Guess what? We saved 25% because for the first time they were in charge of their own health care and they made decisions based on cost effectiveness. This we need to employ across the board. This crazy quilt system of Obamacare makes absolutely no sense unless you're interested in income redistribution. It makes absolutely no sense for health care. And I believe, and I hope you agree with me, it was not implemented for health care. It was implemented to basically move to income redistribution because Obama and the Democrats were not successful at doing income redistribution through straight taxation, so they did it through the health care mechanism. You can't think about it. If you were going to come up with a health care system, could you come up with something as crazy as Obamacare? They don't even have the back office set up to do the tax credits and the auditing of this expansion of Medicaid. And by the way, the biggest thing that's going to be coming through is this bailout of insurance companies. Wait till you see that one. We haven't seen the bill on that. Because to get this through with the Democrats, never mind the Republicans didn't vote for it, but with the Democrats, they had to say, oh, we're going to bail out all the insurance companies if they don't make enough money on this deal. It's just incredible that this is happening in our country. So, in summary, what we need to do is to focus. Focus hard on this November. Tell all your Republican friends and independent friends that what Patrick Murphy says is not what he does. When it comes to the all aboard Florida, he was for it until he was now against it. Because, who knows, maybe it's because of the fact that his father has a major stake in the game with the FEC. Who knows? But the bottom line is you can't trust the guy. You can't trust the man who tells you one thing in one group and says another thing in another group. I never trust a politician who isn't consistent down the line. And let me tell you something. That's one thing you won't have to worry about with Alan Schlesinger. Did 9 terms as a mayor and legislator. I have a background from the Wharton School of Finance. And when I tell you something, you can take it to the bank. I'll walk right across the street into the AFL-CIO and say the same exact thing. And if they don't like it, fine, vote against me. But I'm consistent, and I don't tell people what they want to hear. I tell them what we need to make this country better. Thank you, and God bless all of you.
Next up is Calvin Turnquest. You know Calvin?
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Calvin Turnquest, and I am one of many candidates running for U.S. Congress in the Republican Party. Now, I'm not going to stand here and give you a doom and gloom outlook on the future of America. I see a bright future, a beautiful future, because this is one of the reasons why I came here 25 years ago as an immigrant student under an F-1 visa. Because America is that beacon of hope for all who want to have a prosperous and better future. And as parents, we sacrifice so our children can have a better future than we have. So I came here as a student, looking to build a foundation for myself and build a life for my family so that we can experience that American dream. Now, I asked a lady 2 weeks ago, is the American dream dead or dying? And she said, well, it's dead. I said, I totally disagree with you. She said, why? I said, because you're looking at the American dream. It courses through my blood. Who would have thought 25 years ago a young immigrant in the Bahamas would come here to the United States of America and stand before you saying that I'm a candidate for the United States Congress? Inconceivable, right? But it's happening today. And my job is to preserve that American dream for you, your children, and your grandchildren. I think that's the most important thing we must remember in this candidacy, in this campaign. What is your message? Is it positive or is it dark? I don't need someone going to Congress or speaking about the path in which America is going and not have a positive message and a positive future. Like I said, I came here 25 years ago as a student. I graduated from the University of Miami with a degree in chemistry. I met my wife there. 23 years later, she still tolerates me. We built a life here in America. We started the business. By the way, she's a practicing physician, practices emergency medicine in Palm Beach County. And I myself is a registered paramedic. And I'm certified in anti-aging wellness. So I have experience in healthcare and fitness. Anti-aging, I can help you. But, you know, we started business in Cuesta, and it was that business that we started, an urgent care and a wellness center, that enabled my residents to elect me to the city council. You see, we built a culture in my wellness center where we were able to talk about everything from religion to politics to sex and everything in between, but it must be respectful. And because of that culture that I built, the residents of the Cuesta asked me to run for city council, which I did, and I defeated an incumbent mayor by getting 67% of the votes into Cuesta, and I served as the vice mayor. Now, one thing you must understand about me is that I will hold true to one or many of our Republican tenets, which is limited government. And what you see right now with our current congressman is that he is the poster boy for big government because he has no legislative federal record to stand on. He dabbles in local politics. He tells me he has no concept of the different levels of government: municipal, county, state, federal. So what does he do? He steps on the toes of those who we elect to represent us locally. He talks about all about Florida. Until at such time as that rail crosses state lines or they apply for federal funding, it is a local issue. And that's one reason why I was not at the All Aboard Florida Forum, because I refuse to let Patrick Murphy dictate how this campaign is going to be run. I am not going to chase his tail. I am not going to speak on every issue that's local that he speaks on, because that goes outside the boundaries of his office. So the other candidates can do that if they want, but that's not what I'm going to do, because I believe in home rule, which is the government closest to people are best served to govern the people. I am, as far as I know, the only candidate who openly opposes abortion. I am pro-life. That's the way how I was raised in the church. So I'm going to let my Christian values guide me in every decision that I make, everything that I say, and every vote that I make. It is these Christian principles that formed me and helped me be the man that I am today. I am also the first, and I suppose the only candidate who has signed the Taxpayers Reform Pledge, which says that I will oppose any increase in marginal tax rates for individuals and or businesses. I was fortunate to be endorsed by one of our locals here in Martin County, David Dees. He gave me his full endorsement written last week. I've also been endorsed by a man who I consider my brother in faith, the mayor of Palm Beach Shores, John Workman. Full reign endorsement. Now, when it comes to talking about legislative issues, you have 3 candidates here who actually serve in legislative positions. And some may say, well, we don't need corrupt politicians going up to Congress. And some may say, well, I'm not a politician. But if you're not a politician, you don't know, you're either lying to yourself or you don't know what the heck you're doing or saying, talking about you're going to go to Washington and make legislative change or represent us the way we think we should be represented. And this is one of the reasons why I'm running for Congress. Because we have a congressman, first of all, who has 0 ties to our district, who came up here from Fort Lauderdale, saying that he's going to represent us, not knowing anything about us. I will guarantee you, before he got elected, he didn't know what an estuary was. He couldn't find his way around the Loxahatchee River if you put him in the boat on the river. And this is who we have representing us and talking about local issues. I have lived in this district for 15 years. My wife and I, we've created a life for ourselves here. I have intimate relationships with all your local leaders. And as a councilman on the village Turnquest, I understood the nuances of working with various levels of government. I worked with my county commissioner to bring monies to help us repair our bridge into Preston, but I know the local issues. I worked with then Representative Will Snyder and Senator Joe Negron to help us in our county and in the village Turnquest. But it's just not about knowing the local issues and how to get things done, because I've been, described as being a facilitator. And that's one of the things our position as a congressman should be doing locally. Facilitating, not taking the lead or the face of every issue. When I say be a facilitator, let's say that your county commissioner or your state representative or senator needs something. What you do is you bring them together to solve a common problem. But I think where our governments have gone wrong is that they forgot one basic document, and that's the Constitution. When our government fails to work under a certain set of laws, you have anarchy. Until about a month ago, I was watching this video on YouTube, and I described the different levels of government. And I made a point then to consider myself a Christian constitutional conservative, working under the Constitution, God first, to accomplish the goals of the people. I was interviewed by a reporter, and he asked me, Calvin, why are you working with the Tea Party? I said, I'm not working with the Tea Party, don't get me wrong. I said, I'm on the board of directors. I help shape the direction in which they go. Because I believe in the passionate set of Americans who understand politics, who will not sit down and wait and let things happen, who are go-getters. So why would I take away that segment of society who are so knowledgeable in politics? Am I supposed to discriminate and not represent them? I'm supposed to represent all of us. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm not going to shy away from my Christian principles. I'm not going to shy away from the Tea Party, our conservatives, because that's who I am. Someone asked me one time, why are you a Republican? I said, I know nothing else. I was raised in a conservative family. So why would I change? I'm not Patrick Murphy. Republican one day, Democrat the next. No, I'm conservative, I'm a Republican, and I'm going to work under the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Okay, all three candidates, I have should come up now, and what I'm going to ask you to do is you may direct it to all of them, but if you have a specific question of a specific candidate, I would ask you to call them by name, and then ask them directly, because we want to get as much information as possible today, because that clock is ticking down very, very quickly. And I'd just like for Barbara Claudius to stand up or wave or something. She, as you know, is running for the county commission, and
it's Barbara Cloudis.
Do I pronounce it wrong?
Yeah, but that's
Cloudis. Oh, sorry. It's Barbara Cloudis. Okay.
I won't tell you how my father always pronounced it.
Oh, okay. But I had to think of it. But anyway, we're happy to have her. Okay? Fire away. Who has a question? Not a candidate first. Susan Hall, former county chairman.
Although I'm supporting Calvin, I'm going to ask you and the other candidates who are here, how will you help the candidate who wins the primary? Okay, I am a party person. I vote for the party, and in this case, as I said, I'm supporting Calvin because of basic principles. If Calvin doesn't win, I'm going to be working for whomever. And I want to know what you will do if you don't win the primary, and how you will support the candidate that wins.
Each one of the candidates,
Yes.
right? Okay, so we'll start with you.
Okay, let me tell you, I have always followed Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment. Thou shalt not talk ill of another Republican. So you'll see that throughout the primary process. Then after the primary process, I'll be the biggest supporter of the winner, because it's so important for us to take back this district. I'm glad you have that philosophy, Susan, because we have a big tent, I believe, in the Republican Party, and we need to really tell everyone out there that this is such a critical election. Any one of us is far superior for the leadership of this district than Patrick Murphy. So together, we're going to win this thing, and I hope we all feel the same way.
Well, if you look back at my record, and it's public, I have, in terms of financial resources and in terms of time and energy, supported the Republican candidates. I'll continue to do that. I know much has been made of what I was a supporter of Charlie Crist. Yes, I was when he was a Republican on April 26, 2010. If someone bothered to read the newspaper, they'd find out that I withdrew my support and supported Marco Rubio thereafter. So there will be no confusion that I will support whoever comes out of this primary to win the election.
Okay, to answer your question specifically, Susan, we know that in 2012, in this district, Obama got 98% of the minority vote. 95% of the minority vote. Alan West got 2%. Now, I had the great misfortune of speaking in front of the NAACP 2 weeks ago, and they were not happy to hear what I had to say because I stuck true to my conservative values, principles, and my Christian values. But during my speech, 4 people got up and walked out. 2 women were brought up from Palm Beach County to grill me hard on Democratic issues. At the end of my speech, those 2 women who were hitting me hard, they embraced me, gave me a hug, and asked me to come back down and speak to their meeting in Palm Beach County. So I know that in this district, we don't need to win the majority of the black votes to defeat Patrick Murphy, but we do need to get about 20% of it. And whichever one of us wins the primary, I will walk with them. I will take them into those neighborhoods. I will speak with the black ministers of those churches. I will take them to whatever supporters I have in the local community, and I will endorse them, and I will work hard for them so that we have a Republican running this district. That's to answer your question.
Well, I think the other candidates are also great. She asked about the other candidates.
No, you're gonna have your chance, you had your chance to talk. Not now. This is not the place. Come back
About
next
supporting
month
each other?
and you can talk. Okay? Did anyone have any questions? No questions? No.
Can I offer
Brian has a
can I-
question, Susan.
Okay, can I offer an opinion?
Sure.
I agree. We do have to have a positive message. It cannot be against immigration. It cannot be against this, against that, against that. It has to be what we're for. And I heard some people mention that. I would urge you to turn whatever it is that you have to be positive. I'm particularly upset this couple of weeks on the war on women. We hear about the war on women. We want to help the women in Nigeria. I want to help the women in Nigeria. Meanwhile, we let serial rapists, sexual predators, ICE lets them out into our very own communities, and nobody says a word. War on women. When you talk to women here, when you talk to your women friends, remember, there's a war on women, and it isn't only in Nigeria.
It's not coming from Republicans.
Right, and the misconception, and this is Democrat propaganda, is that if we say that we are pro-life, it's an attack on women and women's bodies, and it is a war on women, but I challenge that, and I say that's not true. Being pro-life means that we're protecting not just the unborn who doesn't have a voice, but we're protecting the woman's body and the trauma that they go through emotionally and physically through abortion. So we're not attacking women. We're actually giving them an alternative to abortion. So, you know, my campaign manager and my wife, they say it all the time, Calvin, how can someone say you're attacking women? I said, yes, I do. I do. But